Demanding answers, a community divided after a man died in police custody, and the two things that could shed light on the case.
National City is a community that has been the victim of environmental racism and inequitable transportation planning in particular for a very long time.
Smart growth in the South Bay, how National City is winning the competition for infrastructure funding.
It's been through, as by their own words, production hell in getting the Model 3 out and getting it to the numbers and getting it to the price and deadline.
The waiting game for the next hot car by Tesla and the one thing that could turn off potential buyers. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebone Monet. Tensions continue to rise in National City as many in the community demand answers over the death of Earl McNeil, a man who died while in police custody.
What I can guarantee you is that we're going to ask the nation to come to National City, the entire nation. We're going to ask them to come by the busloads.
Outrage continued today during public comment that started last night during a city council meeting. KPBS reporter Jade Hyman was there.
Who killed Earl McNeil? Who killed Earl McNeil?
An impassioned question met with a smirk from National City Police Chief Manuel Rodriguez as protesters pressed the Department for Police video and answers in the death of Earl McNeil.
I think that chief is a coward. He sat on June 18th with a family and he smirked and he smiled while he was talking to them. They were crying. They were upset visibly. He smirked and he smiled the entire time just like he was here. He told them his officers did nothing wrong. We said if that's the case, release the tapes.
The family says McNeil suffered from bipolar disorder. Police say on May 26 he came to the station agitated and combative. They arrested him, said they found drugs, put him in a restraint, and took him off to jail. At some point, he went into medical distress and stopped breathing. His following days were spent in the hospital until he died June 11th after being taken off life support. McNeil's death is under investigation, and police say they won't release video until that investigation is over. Chief Rodriguez's response to our questions about the community's confidence and trust in their investigation was overshadowed with outrage.
Well, I think there's trust in our department, but the bottom line...
Are you serious? Are you serious?
Those questions were followed by demands for the chief to resign, and that portion of the meeting coming to a hostile close. Jade Hyman, KPBS News.
An iNews Source investigation last year found a private nonprofit college in Santee could not account for millions of dollars in expenses. Now reporter Megan Wood says the school has new troubles.
The state franchise tax board suspended San Diego Christian College this month for failing to file a tax return. That means the nearly 50-year-old school can't legally do business until it submits the return and pays a fine. The action comes 8 months after an iNews Source investigation found officials at San Diego Christian couldn't account for more than $20 million in expenses. School officials did not respond to messages requesting comment on the tax board suspension. The college received about $7.4 million in federal student financial aid last year, and its students pay about $30,000 a year in tuition. For KPBS, I'm iNews Source reporter Megan Wood.
iNews Source is an independently funded nonprofit media partner of KPBS. Possibly a small victory for UC California students. Tuition might go down for the first time in 20 years. UC Regents are considering a tuition reduction of $60. The savings would show up next year with the elimination of a $60 surcharge. The charge came after the university lost a class action lawsuit in 2013 related to tuition hikes. Officials say the $100 million judgment will be paid off next fall. The last time UC California lowered tuition was during the 1999-2000 school year. One final climate change-related priority for Governor Jerry Brown is moving forward, but it faces opposition from some Democrats. Capitol Public Radio's Ben Bradford reports on the effort to share more electric power with other states.
If California jointly planned electric use with other western states, the thinking goes it could pull in wind or hydropower from those states when solar plants shut off at night. And Lauren Navarro of the Environmental Defense Fund told lawmakers last month
it also helps us take dirtier resources off the grid in other states.
Even states that don't share California's clean energy goals, based purely on economics.
The renewables we have in California are less expensive and will be chosen more often by the market than dirtier resources like coal.
Governor Brown has supported a regional grid, arguing the state won't be able to put much more renewable energy online without it. But the plan has divided Democrats, consumer advocates, and environmentalists who fear a new interstate energy agreement could allow federal regulators appointed by President Trump to interfere in California's electricity mix. State Senator Hannah Beth Jackson.
It is so critical, it seems to me, that we maintain that protection against an administration that has made a commitment to doing everything possible to undermine the values in this state and our energy principles in particular.
Despite that criticism, a bill to create a regional grid passed 2 Senate committees last month. When lawmakers return in August, Brown will have 1 more month to pass the bill before his final session in office ends. At the state capitol, I'm Ben Bradford.
$30 million. That's how much the San Diego Association of Governments is set to distribute to cities throughout the county. The grant money is meant to promote smart growth, biking, and walking. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says one city has been remarkably successful at competing for that money.
Right now we're in downtown National City. We're at the intersection of 7th Street and Roosevelt Avenue.
Steve Manganello is an engineer and director of public works for the city of National City. We're standing next to a big vacant lot surrounded by chain link fencing. The city hopes a developer will turn this land into high-density housing.
The goal is to encourage smart growth redevelopment, and really what that entails is if you're going to encourage high density, the only way to accommodate that without completely oversaturating transportation network with cars is to provide amenities other than driving.
City officials want to beautify Roosevelt Avenue with wider sidewalks, better street lighting and landscaping, and bike lanes that lead to a nearby trolley station.
There's a great opportunity through infrastructure enhancements to kind of lay that groundwork so that there's a good foundation for developers to come in and then build vertical.
National City plans to make these improvements with the help of about $2 million from SANDAG, the Regional Transportation Planning Agency. The money comes from a competitive grant program meant to encourage smart growth, biking, and walking. It's funded by Transnet, the local half-cent sales tax extended by voters in 2004. National City is recommended for more of this grant money than any other city in the county, even more than the city of San Diego, which has more than 20 times National City's population. Manganello is thrilled.
The reality is we don't have a lot of funding available to do new projects, so we rely heavily on these competitive grant programs. So the fact that we're being recommended for, I think, almost $7.9 million in 8 separate projects. As you mentioned, more than anyone in the county. We're absolutely thrilled, and it's going to allow us to provide some much-needed infrastructure enhancements for our community.
National City is a community that has been the victim of environmental racism and inequitable transportation planning in particular for a very long time.
Ana Castro Reynoso works for the Environmental Health Coalition, a nonprofit that's been advocating for cleaner air in National City for decades. We meet at the 24th Street trolley station, which is right next to the I-5 freeway. She says the proximity of the freeway causes a lot of problems.
So there are higher rates of asthma in National City, higher rates of obesity because of the lack of healthy food and grocery stores nearby. There's noise pollution, as you can hear, from the freeway, and that plagues the community. And these are just some of the impacts that this has.
Castro Reynoso says it's good that SANDAG is offering money to National City for better bike and pedestrian facilities, but she's not ready to let SANDAG off the hook. The agency has long-standing plans to widen the I-5 freeway with more lanes, something she says will make the city's air pollution even worse.
It offsets any benefit that you're going to have from a bike lane when you put a 2 general purpose lanes right next to the most impacted community, one of the most impacted communities in the entire state.
Castro Reynoso is also wary of another project recommended for Sandag grant funding. National City wants to create a transit-oriented development plan for the area around this trolley station at 24th Street. She fears taller and denser buildings could displace low-income residents and says city planners need to give those residents a meaningful say in how the plans are developed. Steve Manganello says community outreach is always a central part of National City's planning process.
And then when grant opportunities such as the Smart Growth or the Active Transportation Program come along, we're already teed up because we've done that outreach to present projects that demonstrate an ability to address the needs of the community.
The Sandag Board of Directors is scheduled to vote on approving a portion of the grant funding next week. The rest of the funding is due for a vote by the fall. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
There will be no vote this fall on a ballot measure asking whether California should be split into 3 different states. The state Supreme Court kicked Proposition 9 off the November ballot today. An environmental group has filed a lawsuit against the measure, arguing it was not just a constitutional amendment, but rather a sweeping revision that requires a constitutional convention.
Amazing. This is a highly unusual situation. In all the years of California's history, this has only happened a handful of times. We're very certain that we're going to prevail when it's heard in full in the fall, but this will not be before voters this year. It's going to save the state lots of time, energy, and money and stop the dividing of California, hopefully once and for all.
If the court later finds in favor of Prop 9, the measure could go before voters in 2020. In tonight's new economy report, nearly 500,000 people are on the wait list for Tesla's mass-market electric car. AP reporter Krista Fourier explains a key change that could lead to some canceled orders.
Keith Reynolds went to great lengths to reserve his spot for a Tesla Model 3, and it paid off. He was among the first on the waiting list when Elon Musk's company started taking $1,000 deposits for its new electric car. That was in March 2016. The current waiting list has grown to 420,000.
I knew that the more expensive ones would be created first. In my own mind, I was thinking maybe 3 months, 6 months later, according to his own ramping projections, that I would be able to get the entry model.
More than 2 years later, Reynolds is still waiting, but that's not what's bothering him.
I think the point that I would probably be over it is when the incentives, both federal and state, disappear.
Because Tesla sales have now hit 200,000 since 2010, it means the $7,500 federal tax credit for rechargeable electric vehicles will be phased out. Current buyers will get the full credit through the end of the year, but it will gradually decrease until the end of 2019. That could put the car, priced starting at $35,000, out of reach for Reynolds and others on the waiting list.
My decision was based on the low price point plus the tax break. We're a very value-conscious family.
Analysts say if buyers bail, it could spell more trouble for Musk and Tesla.
Tesla's under tremendous pressure. It's been through, as by their own words, production hell in getting the Model 3 out and getting it to the numbers and getting it to the price and deadline.
Tesla wouldn't comment on the possibility of losing buyers from the waiting list. The company is using the Model 3 to move from a niche maker of expensive electric cars for the wealthy to an automaker for the masses.
The Model 3, that was supposed to be the volume vehicle. It's supposed to be high profit. It's not doing that just yet.
Reynolds says he's hopeful that the cheaper version he wants will be ready in time for the tax break.
I'm going to give it another 6 months and we'll see.
A decision he wishes he didn't have to make after years of anticipation. Krista Fourier, Associated Press, Laguna Hills, California.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, President Trump's conflicting statements sow confusion about the White House stance toward Russia. Coming up at 7, right after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Summertime can be mosquito time, and those critters could be carrying West Nile virus. San Diego County officials announced today that a batch of mosquitoes trapped in Santee tested positive for the virus. No people or birds in San Diego have tested positive so far. The disease, which spreads by mosquitoes, can be deadly. Mosquitoes breed in standing water, so county health officials recommend residents clear standing water outside their homes. It may be the most effective way to find out if you have what it takes to be a San Diego firefighter.
Beam of the ladder.
Each year, San Diego Fire and Rescue offers young people an opportunity to get outdoors and find out if firefighting is the life for them. Not surprisingly, the department's Summer Academy has lit a fire under its cadets.
The enthusiasm level for these kids is through the roof. They're getting experiences unlike anything else that many other kids their age have had the opportunity to experience. So the camaraderie, the teamwork, the friendships that they build alongside learning these firefighting and life-saving skills is really what this program's all about.
I joined a fire program, which led me to the cadet program, and that's when I fell in love with it. Everything from helping people, but still being able to fight fire, being physical, everything just clicked for me, and I knew it was what I wanted to do.
There are 200 cadets learning the ropes in this summer's program. 20% are female. It's finally open for business. A stretch of Highway 1 along the Big Sur coast that was blocked by a massive landslide last year. Caltrans says the road connecting LA to San Francisco opened to traffic around noon today. A quarter mile of Highway 1 at a spot called Mud Creek was buried in May of 2017. That's when more than 1 million tons of rock and earth slipped down a slope saturated by winter storms. Comi-con fans will enjoy some mild weather this week. Julia Wyden has details in tonight's forecast.
Hi, good evening. A little bit more moisture in our area than we're used to. Here's what's happening. You can see some passing showers going on by. They're mostly up in the higher elevation areas, but can't rule out a couple of them making their way to the coast. This is, again, very isolated. Not everyone will have to deal with this. The reason why we have the threat for showers is because that monsoonal moisture that had been located over the Four Corners region is now shifting its way westward as high pressure settles on in. So we're kind of getting that residual rain to just sneak on through the area. You can see, again, it's a little bit more likely for folks farther off to the east and up towards our north near LA. Around here tonight, can't rule out a shower or a thunderstorm. Temperature in San Diego dropping down to 70 degrees. Let's go ahead and take a look at what will be happening around the area. We've got a view on our map. 70 in Oceanside tonight. We'll be at 67 in Ramona. Again, looking like those showers and storms will be a little bit more likely farther off to the east. Similar conditions for Thursday. Temperatures are going to be heating up. That threat for rain and storms will become a little bit more of a widespread issue for folks way back towards the east into Arizona and back towards the Four Corners. Forecast around here tomorrow, coastal areas, you're going to start off with some cloud cover. Afternoon, a little more sunshine. Spot shower or thunderstorm possible. At the coast, we'll have more southerly airflow. That's going to bring more moisture and humidity for the weekend. Temps in the low 80s. Forecast inland, lots of sunshine, highs in the mid 80s for the finish of the weekend into the start of the weekend. Taking you to the mountain region, we'll be in the 70s for these next couple of days. A little bit warmer for Sunday and Monday. Can't rule out a couple weekend showers and storms, but again, mostly sunshine. And your desert temperatures should be right on target for what's normal for this time of year, generally in the low triple digits. Overnight temperatures will be in the upper 70s to low 80s. Back to you.
Comi-con officially kicks off tonight. That means major crowds and major traffic downtown. KPBS video journalist Katie Shulov has the tips on the best way to get to all the excitement.
Trolleys wrapped with Comi-con ads have hit the tracks, and attendees are starting to pour out at the convention center stop, where it looks a little strange. New this year, MTS, the city's transit system, has decorated the stop to look like a scene from the hit Netflix series Stranger Things. Also new this year, the city is closing Harbor Drive to all vehicles from now through Sunday.
Driving down here is going to be very difficult. It's going to be very crowded, with Harbor especially closed. Don't put yourself through that. Just go park at Qualcomm right off the 8, right off the 15. and take the trolley in right to the heart of the action.
Harbor will even be closed to bikes, scooters, and skateboards.
Give yourself ample time to get down here.
San Diego Police Department Lieutenant Brent Williams says the closure will help them better protect the 200,000 plus people expected to be walking in the area.
For those that want to utilize alternate vehicles like scooters or dockless bikes, they're not going to be allowed to park at the convention center, but there'll be designated spots. I believe one on the west end on Harbor, the other on the east end, and then one back at the Embarcadero Park area.
Discounted trolley and bus passes are available on the MTS Compass Cloud app or at any of the Green Line stops, where trolleys will run every 7.5 minutes until Comi-con ends Sunday. Katie Shulev, KPBS News.
A Midwest artist wants to see more images that are representative of the African American community. From WOSU Public Media, we see how David Butler fills the void inside his Columbus, Ohio studio.
I've always painted, I've always drawn, I've always told stories, but I've gotten into narrative painting and portraiture more so in the last 7 or 8 years. I kind of made it my mission to kind of try to bring narratives of people who look like me more into my work. What's wrong with advocating for more of your stories being told? Like that, and that's always like the weird thing I call it, channels people to be like, what's the wrong I'm doing by saying, I want to see more black people on my TV screen, I want to see more black people in my paintings, I want to see more black people everywhere, like in everything, because I exist in a world where I see black people every day, and like you do too. Being black is like only part of the experience when you're getting to know me. Like, you know, my blackness is, you know, just like the first thing that you're gonna notice. Like, I know who I am. I know that I'm like a African-American, heterosexual, cisgendered male who exists in a world that has socially constructed ideals. So why not place those ideals and challenge those ideals in my work? We usually are always pitting ourselves up against a white standard that like was never built for us to exist in. That trail has already been laid for white males to walk through fairly easy. And if you don't fit into that subject or that theme, you have to either assimilate to that or you have to challenge that system. I was reading this book talking about the history of the black image through cartoons, and kind of made me investigate like other identities and kind of like how we've perceived like people of color throughout our entire lives through the lens of kind of cartoons and like comic book strips, and it's kind of built this idea, these stereotypes out of these fun images or playful images. But I also latched on to the symbol of the coloring book now, how in our millennial age, adult coloring books are a thing. And so because we were introduced to color in general through a coloring book as a child, but now color is being expressed to us as adults as this thing to build your brain. You can build your brain through learning how to color. But in our society now, color is an issue still. And nobody wants to build their brain to understand color on a social context. So by me placing people of color in these coloring book pages and with these colored images that are stereotypical images, right? So I place the stereotypical images in there with them, and it kind of builds this world that they exist in, this world that doesn't exist. It's a world where we're understanding color as adults, you know, in a literal sense, but not understanding like people of color today. So it's my role as the artist is taking you into that world. It's like my grand hall of oppression, because I want you to feel the way I do. being of color in this world is a gift and a curse, because you love yourself, you love your identity, but the world doesn't necessarily love you back.
That story came to us from WOSU Public Media in Columbus, Ohio. Thousands of fans celebrated an annual summer tradition in San Diego with the opening of the Del Mar racing season. Before the crowds took over the track, die-hard racing fans woke up early to watch the horses work out. They snagged some of the best seats in the house. Some fans say it's their favorite place to be on opening day.
You come to meet a lot of people that come also, for opening day, and we all became to know each other, and it's the perfect spot right next to the finish line. You got the announcer's booth, the board right in front of you. It's fun.
I like to watch the horses work, things like that, and it's just so relaxing out here. It's like sitting at the beach.
The racing season runs through Labor Day, September 3rd. Now here's a look at what we are working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On Morning Edition, something out of an international spy novel. The Russian woman at the heart of a high-profile federal investigation and her potential connections to Kremlin operatives. And on Midday Edition, beyond the costumes and fanfare, the legal minds testing geek theories at Comi-con. That's tomorrow on KPBS Radio. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.